Hey, what's up, guys? Mike Marlinski here with the Metal Webzine. Welcome to episode 41 of All the Metal Podcast. Our Black Sabbath series continues. This is going to be part 5 of the Sabbath series. We are talking about Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and we are switching up co-hosts yet again. My partner in crime, Mr. Jason Doom, unfortunately needs another night off. So we are going to be doing this with Bill Page, who is lead vocalist for Wrong the Oppressor, a hardcore band here in Buffalo, New York, and he's been in a number of bands over the years. I'm going to let him discuss his rather lengthy history in the Buffalo metal and hardcore scene, instead of me just rambling on and on about everything he's done for like another 5 minutes. So I'll let him speak for himself, and then we will get into our discussion, interview-style analysis of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Thank you for sticking with us thus far. Let's give Bill a call. Hello there. Hello there. Hello there.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I'm just turning you up a little bit, and it's a Facebook call, too, so we should be good.
Okay. Alright, sounds good.
Alrighty. Okay, so, yeah. I already kind of introduced you, but I didn't, go into detail, so, I was wondering if you could just kind of give, a brief recap of, all your bands. If is that possible, or is that, an hour-long conversation on its own?
How about I just keep it to the more important bands?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Like the more noteworthy shit. If you want to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you want me to start? Be like, hi, I'm Bill. I've played in the following bands.
No. I mean, I'm recording right now. I'm not planning on doing much editing to keep it natural. So if you want to just, Bill Page from Wrong the Oppressor, and here's what I've done before. Here, you might know me from this or that.
Oh, okay. Alright, well, hi, I'm Bill Page. I currently sing in a band called Wrong the Oppressor. I have previously been in Lockjaw, Killshot, Bleed for Me, Half-Mast, and a slew of others.
Cool. I don't think I knew about Bleed for Me, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I played bass with them for a short amount of time.
Oh, no shit.
We had 2 bass players, me and Joe Villela.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I thought Joe was in that band. That's the only reason I know that band is because of Joe. And, meeting Joe through Doug White.
Yeah.
That's bagging.
Yeah.
Alright, so are you good to get into this, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath conversation?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, he's ready.
We're going to talk about how fun of an album it isn't.
Okay. No, I like the contrast of it, so we could just bring that to the table. Okay, so is this Ozzy's strongest vocal performance with Sabbath?
That's one that's kind of tough for me to say. I've never really noticed anything that made his vocals stand out more on any album to me. So that's one thing that I'm really kind of I don't really have a strong opinion on. I like Ozzy's vocals on every record. None of them seem any better or worse to me, even though I've heard people say that about different records. I obviously, as time goes on, you're going to be a better singer.
Right.
No matter what, you're going to get stronger just from playing more and being used to being in the studio. But whether or not it's stronger than anything that came after it, I don't really think so.
See, in listening to the early records, I felt like his diction got stronger over time, and there was less of a wail and more of just his pronunciation improved, his diction through his singing, and I found myself catching on to the melodies more. I felt like he was carrying the melodies better. By the time he got to Master of Reality, and then just I was able to lock into the words without reading along like a lot more. But I mean, if you, it depends on the listener. Like you can listen to Ozzy like right out the gate on that opening track on the self-titled debut, and just if that sound resonates with you, like you're gonna have the same experience that took longer for me to have. So like I don't know. But I know a lot of people credit Sabotage for that, for his strongest performance of like his era with Sabbath, and like a lot of people like I think the majority think it's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So I mean you're like you're probably the biggest Sabbath fan I know in the area. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. Because and you love Tony Martin, I think, more than anyone I've met around here.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like I will stand by every single Sabbath record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I personally, there's some that are definitely better than others, but I don't think there's a bad album in the bunch. Their worst record's still better than some bands' bests.
Oh, I'll totally agree there. I mean, a lot of people would say that that's Forbidden, and I think Forbidden like trumps a lot of records that I feel like are overrated.
Yeah. You know they just announced that they're going to do a remix and remaster of Forbidden.
No, I didn't know that. The last new Sabbath news that I remember hearing was about the Tony Martin box set.
Right, and that's what it's going to be part of that.
Okay.
And they're going to remix and remaster it, which that's the one that needs it the most.
Sure.
I think that could really fix what's wrong with it.
Well,
that's the whole problem, is the production and the way it sounds.
Well, because it wasn't done by a rock or metal producer, right? Like if I'm not mistaken, was that done by Body Count?
It was done by Ernie C., who is a rock and metal
guy.
Body Count's a metal band. And but yeah, I mean, for the time it came out, we probably shouldn't get into this too much because we're talking.
No, we're trying to do Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but like no, I just had it in my head that a hip hop artist engineered that album, but I'm wrong. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's definitely got ties to that community because of Ice-T. They come at everything from a different way. And for that time period, I get the idea why everybody thought it would be it would be good, because I like the way the Body Count records sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just didn't gel very well, which is unfortunate, because I think it's cool that they did experiment and try to make it work, but I just didn't think it worked.
Sure. Musically, is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath the most diverse album of the Ozzy era?
No.
And what would you consider to be the most musically diverse album of the Ozzy era?
Never Say Die.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I wanted to ask you this because it's another like point of like popular opinion. Like I think that was the point of like this questionnaire. Like I wanted to like throw the popular opinion at you, and like not that you're always going to disagree, but I mean like you do have a very unique perspective on Sabbath compared to like anybody I know around here. So
I've been listening to that's like me getting into metal.
Sure.
And,
yeah, of course.
I'm going to be 45 in June, but I didn't stick to that. I like lots of different music in general, so that probably affects how I view Sabbath as opposed to other people.
Right, for sure. Okay, so all right, so we're getting close to the thing you really wanted to talk about. So okay, considering the morbid album cover, the scary album cover, like. You don't think this is a fun-sounding album. I think it's a fun-sounding album, specifically Sabracadabra, obviously. But, whatever your feelings are on it, what are some fun elements of this record that stand out to you? Like synth stuff or just a positive vibe or whatnot?
Yeah, really, actually, it's funny you say that, because the synth stuff really does give it a whole interesting aspect. Like, diving back into this record, just kind of preparing for this, I totally forgot about the song "Who Are You?"
Right.
Which is just it's a great track. It's dark. It's very boding. The way they do the synths with it,
sure,
replacing the guitar.
Yeah.
it's perfect the way they do it. It's a real standout track because of that, and it's one that it's one of those songs you kind of forget about it. It doesn't get mentioned much, even like with as much as I like Sabbath, it's a song I forget about.
Yep.
But diving back into it, it's just kind of like, man, this song really stands out. I mean, it's not my favorite song on the album,
Right.
but it's definitely a standout track.
Sure. And okay, I mean, I know you said you wanted to talk about the album cover. I agree, it is. I don't know. I mean, I love the Dehumanizer album cover, but this is a very strong album cover. So, what are your feelings on that versus the music?
Yeah, I was talking to my friend Gus, who actually does Press Gang Records, and we talk about metal all the time, and especially Black Sabbath. And I was telling him about this, and you know, we were talking about how the album artwork's probably like the strongest of any, and we kind of delved into a conversation about how, for as great of a band as Black Sabbath is, they don't really have the best like their album covers aren't really terrible, except for maybe Paranoid.
Right, the Paranoid cover is hysterical.
It's horrible, but it's like they're a band that you think should have like better like real artwork for their albums, and they don't.
Right.
It's like you can really like count on one hand. We kind of went through it. It's like we thought the best were Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Mob Rules, and then after that would be like Dehumanizer,
right,
and the Headless Cross, and look at how far apart all those records are.
Yeah, absolutely. And they got 19 studio albums and then everything else. So
yeah, and funny enough, one of the other best album artworks is Forbidden.
Sure. No, and I do love that. I'm a sucker for the Reaper, and I love album cover. No matter how cliche it is, I love album covers that portray the Reaper in a nice, sinister way. And that's why I love Dehumanizer so much. But no, there are aspects of the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath cover that like could almost pass for a Corpse album, just because of just the way the like the skeletons are all. It almost looks like they're picking each other apart. Like it's just a really cool image. It's like an entanglement of bone and flesh. It's cool.
I guess there's a pretty interesting history about it too, which I was unaware of. And like after you like sent me the questions, I kind of did a little digging into it.
Sure.
The guy who made that cover is like a huge artist. He does like all these movie posters. He did like the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie poster, a lot of Star Wars movie posters, Back to the Future, Muppet movie posters. So the guy who did it, but that was like early in his career when he did Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Right. Oh wow. No, that's great. That's a great introductory piece, like a portfolio piece to have early on, and like for him to evolve into what he be like. What's his name? Because I never looked into this. I don't know anything about this guy.
Give me 1 second. I saved it just in case we got into this.
Oh yeah. Especially the Star Wars posters. I want to know about it.
Yeah, it's Ernie Cefalu.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I think he started with Star Wars with the prequels.
Right. Oh, okay.
And I think he worked up through the current sequels.
Oh, okay. That's why it doesn't sound familiar. Okay, but that's
he did
awesome.
The original ones.
That's awesome. So, pertaining to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, what's your favorite? If you don't have a single favorite guitar moment on the album, I mean, just kind of flesh out the answer a little bit, but your favorite guitar moment or moments on the album, like that Iommi...
The title track,
wrote.
Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Sure.
I mean, it's just so fucking heavy.
That opening riff, the riff that opens the record is excellent, yeah.
It's just like, I feel like that's kind of probably a typical answer, but... And I'll be honest, because it's like a more popular Sabbath song, it's one that I kind of pass by sometimes.
Sure.
But really, it's a big song because it's a fucking great song. That fucking riff is just like... But, I mean, there's all kinds of great riffs and guitar moments on this album. But I mean, that's kind of, that's Tony Iommi. He
Yeah.
always does. You know,
Right.
you can
Right.
sit there and say that, but when you're going to an album, you're like, oh yeah, but the lead here is fucking killer, and you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. I often. I wouldn't be able to narrow it down to one just because I like a lot of subtleties in his guitar playing, and I hear whenever I review Sabbath records, I always like take a look at the other subgenres of metal that kind of formed in the years and the decades that followed. Like there are a lot of like melodic Iommi licks that sound like proto power metal to me, and like the way like certain guitar leads like coalesce with the synthesizers like reminds me of a lot of like cheesy power metal that came later in like the 80s and the 90s, and like there and even Metallica, like Metallica obviously, grew up listening to Sabbath, and there are leads on volume 4 and on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath that like I've heard snippets of on Ride the Lightning, and it could be a coincidence, but I can't remember the song. But there's one particular Iommi lead, and it's either on Volume 4 or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, and I swear like it's in Fade to Black, like note for note, half of this lead is part of Fade to Black, and I've heard that like, so it's just. You can just pick apart like all the things that Black Sabbath like undoubtedly set into motion, like with the genre and the multitude of subgenres.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anyone who has seen any of my bands over the years knows that I have an obsession with SGs, and that is why. So, and I'll probably delve into that more as I continue to play. Okay. I don't know if you've even heard this. I don't even know if this question is worth your time, but I have to bring it up because it always comes up. Your opinion on Metallica's cover of Sabracadabra?
Yes, I thought that was an interesting question because I have heard it. I have that album, and I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It's a good cover. I mean, Metallica's a good band. I don't think they add anything to it.
Sure.
I think by the time they covered it, and I have a couple of different reasons why. I mean, besides this, it is what it is. But to
Yeah.
me, like Metallica doing covers, even though there's nothing really wrong with the Garage Inc. album that came out, but them covering more popular songs, even though they do them well, it's kind of like, well, these are songs I know. Where to me, when I got into Metallica, part of the fun was all the cover songs they did of bands I didn't know.
That's right.
Like Garage Days Revisited is like one of the best Metallica releases because I didn't know the Misfits even then.
Sure.
I definitely didn't know Diamond Head.
Diamond Head, right.
And like all those and all the B-sides from Justice, like those covers, like Bread Fan.
Yeah, they were covering a lot of early like new wave of British heavy metal that like a lot of Americans weren't familiar with at the time.
Right. So to me, like that's more interesting. That's why them covering something like Sabracadabra. It's like, yeah, it's cool. They definitely do it well. It doesn't suck, but nothing about it really like interests me that much. Where on the other hand, like people doing Black Sabbath covers that really I think are killer are, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but in the 90s, Hydra Head Records did a series of split 7-inches with bands that covered Black Sabbath called In These Black Days. And Today Is the Day did an awesome cover of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath in that. And Overcast did a great cover of The National Acrobat. And I think those are much more interesting covers of those songs that they kind of add their own sound to.
Sure.
And another great cover from this album, which it's just one that's always, probably because it was one of the early, but on the I'm the Man EP, Anthrax covers Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And it's fucking amazing.
Oh, the title track, but they gave it the Anthrax treatment. Okay.
Right, yeah, they gave it a little, they did it like a little bit of their own treatment, and just Joey Belladonna's vocals. I mean, Joey Belladonna is just like, he's a better singer than James Hetfield or Ozzy Osbourne. So it adds a whole another dynamic to that song. Kind of like the same thing with Today Is the Day. Steve Austin's not a better singer than them, but he definitely approaches it a lot differently. And I think that those types of things make a huge difference and really make those covers stand out more.
Right. Oh man, great points for sure. And now getting into like it was something of a, I don't want to say every album, because now that I'm like thinking about every Black Sabbath studio album, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's like I will call it something of a half tradition of having instrumental tracks, particularly with clean guitar and piano or synth on Sabbath albums. And I think one thing they tried to do on this record was either make fun of the concept of fluff or just admit that it was fluff, the track fluff. But do you consider it to be fluff, or is it a standout instrumental?
I think it's a standout instrumental. I think it's especially after you have Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, a National Acrobat, and then it just comes right down into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it definitely keeps a good mood going for the record.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good in between point from a National Acrobat and Sabracadabra.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole record in general flows very well.
Yeah, it does. That's one thing I will definitely say about it, especially in comparison to like the four predecessors. Like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath does have the track listing is perfect. The order, very, very strong flow. And I love that about exactly what you said about fluff. That's why I love fluff, because it is a beautiful segue between songs. And it's just, it's a visual experience almost. It's this nice passageway. And even if you listen to it on its own as a standalone song, like it's very peaceful. And like I think that's one thing Tony Iommi has always been capable of doing. I think he's capable of just kind of sitting down and winging it on guitar, and like he'll come up with something that's going to impress someone else with very little thought or effort. It's just a natural talent, and that I definitely love the song for that. I think it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, it is, and like that, and it's just like any kind of like slower part he writes, it still has like an eeriness to it, which helps.
His personality comes through in his playing. Like his personality really comes through his fingers and his tonality. Like it's a very unique sound. It's hard to. If you're coming into just a random song of his, just in the middle, and maybe there are no vocals, and it's a difficult song for some people to discern. Like anyone who knows anything about him or his playing or his discography, like you're going to know right off the bat within a few seconds that you're listening to Tony Iommi play guitar.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so there's a little bit of this going on in this record, especially in Spiral Architect. Do you prefer Sabbath like with or without the extra orchestration, or does it depend on the song for you?
I mean, it's none of the songs do it. There's not a song with it that I think doesn't work.
Sure.
On this particular album, it definitely works very well. More so in Looking for Today, I think it really stands out, even though it's a little more subtle under some parts, the way it comes in. But it definitely adds a great element to the song.
Right. For sure. And what do you think about...
And
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying generally, I'm a fan of orchestrations. And even though this is a little more off the point, but because... I know sometimes people with metal, they're just like, I just want guitar, drums, and bass.
Yeah, right.
And I personally think that things like orchestrations, keyboards, synths, just adds all. I don't think it makes things less heavy.
Sure.
I think it adds a whole other element and dimension to it. I mean, yeah, it can be executed poorly.
Yeah, right. It has to complement the song, yeah.
Yeah, but most of the time, bands I hear use it, whether it's Black Sabbath or like Cradle of Filth or Demi Borgir, it usually works. It works more often than it doesn't with the bands I like.
Sure, it adds to that ominous, foreboding, sinister aspect, especially if your root notes are structured a certain way, so it matches and empowers and enhances the whatever evilness is coming from the guitar and the drums. Um, what are your feelings on? Well, when I wrote this question, I was thinking about Spiral Architect. Like, what are your general feelings about that song?
It's a good song. It's a good closer.
Yeah, right.
Um, Again, it's um, like most Sabbath records and stuff. It kind of depends on my mood on like what's my favorite song or whatnot. And it's never a go-to song, but it's still a very strong song. Um, and like I said, it's a really good closer for the album.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's a good nightcap. Um,
Yeah.
when Okay, so you being the Sabbath connoisseur that you are, when on a Sabbath binge, is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath one of the first albums you reach for or think of, or is it others? Like, what are your go to favorites?
See, that kind of comes. That's a tough one for me because it all depends on my mood.
Yeah,
And
different
especially
eras
at
for
this point
different
in
moods.
time,
Absolutely, yeah,
at this point in time, it kind of depends. Like if I'm reading about it, like sometimes, like for whatever reason, an article will come up where I'll catch something and it'll be concentrating on a certain Sabbath album. I'm like, oh, I haven't listened to that in a while. Because normally, if I'm just like I want to listen to Sabbath, I'll usually just put it on shuffle on my phone.
yep,
Um, and that way I just kind of cover all the bases because especially with the Ozzy era,
yeah,
I
right,
don't really have a favorite Sabbath album.
right,
With the exception of Technical Ecstasy, they're all equal in my eyes.
sure,
Um, like Technical Ecstasy is the only one I can say is never a go-to album. But the rest of them I could pull out at any time and be like, I really want to listen to this. And again, it's all for different reasons, which to their credit, it's because they created something different with each album.
right,
Um, what makes me want to reach for Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is not the same thing that makes me want to reach for Paranoid.
right,
It's definitely not the same thing that makes me want to reach for Never Say Die, which, yes, Never Say Die is a lot of times a go-to because I love that record, and I
yeah.
know that's one that's not high on a lot of people's lists. But yeah, it's different things that make me reach for different Sabbath records. It's tough to say that
That
there's not really a favorite.
Never Say Die. That's one I don't care for. I love the music. I don't care for the album cover. That's one of the many Sabbath
Yeah.
records where I don't care for the cover, but I love the music.
You know what sucks about that is the artwork they did for their reunions based on that. Like if that was the album artwork, it would have been so much better.
Right. Sure.
If they would have used like a drawing of it like that, like those drawings of it look awesome.
Well, yeah, those are all.
And,
That's a nice homage to their own work. Like it's really cool.
yeah. And it's like if those drawings would have been the album cover, that would have been so much better.
Right. Right. That's cool. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it if they had started with those.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So, as I know, obviously you're into a ton of different metal and hardcore bands, and you probably like a lot of like at least some like uh I don't know, sludge, stoner and doom, and probably some crust punk in there as well. So like, what do you what bands come to mind? Like, what bands do you personally listen to because they remind you of Sabbath? Was there anybody that's a major influence for you that you got into, like because there was something about them that reminded you of Sabbath?
Yes. Trouble.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've ever
Trouble.
listened to Trouble.
Oh my God, you should listen to Trouble, dude.
I
Trouble is
no, I don't
fucking
think I've ever listened to the band Trouble.
their first couple albums are like straight up doom, but it's still heavy Black Sabbath worship, and it just got worse. I shouldn't say worse because it got better.
No, I knew what you meant. I knew what you
But
meant.
it's just like, and then they hooked up with Rick Rubin and did a couple records on Def Jam, and it was just fucking amazing. That band just fucking blows my mind, and they're such. I mean, yeah, they sound like Black Sabbath so much, but it's so good. and like them or Cathedral.
Yeah.
But
I love Cathedral. Cathedral's good.
Yeah, but Trouble is just like complete Black Sabbath worship.
Nice.
And it's...
What kind of vocals?
The vocals are kind of reminiscent of Ozzy, but when Eric Wagner was the original singer, he's got a little more raspy voice going. Raspy might not be the right word. I don't know how to describe it. It's very like it doesn't sound like Ozzy, but it's close. It's like he's trying to sound like Ozzy.
Right.
And he's got a fucking great voice. And now, I might screw up his name. Is it Kyle Thomas, the singer from X-Order?
Okay.
He sings for Trouble now.
Oh, wow.
And so he definitely has a different voice than Eric had, but it still works really well.
Yeah, X-Order I'm familiar with. I gotta listen to Trouble. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely need to get into Trouble, because they are fucking just an amazing band. Fortunately, before they parted ways a few years ago, because they broke up. You know, they're one of those bands that kind of broke up in the 90s. Got back together in like the early 2000s, like with the whole original lineup. And me and Jeremy Smith went to go see him at Lee's Palace in Toronto, and it was fucking amazing. And then they parted ways with Eric, but I'd love to see him with Kyle singing, because it's still really fucking good.
Cool. Awesome. Very cool. That's great. No, I'm probably gonna get into this band now. I'm so glad I asked you that question. Because I think the one band, if I had to pick one, the one band I got into because they reminded me of Sabbath was Sleep. I'm surprised. I actually love the band Sleep. And I don't listen to a lot of music like that, but there's just something about they're just so loud, you know, and just it's just bombastic music. It's like a wall of sound. And you know what? I shouldn't say that, because I actually love Yob for the same reason. Yob's a cool band. Okay, so in what ways have you incorporated the music and or the vocals of Black Sabbath into music you've created with your many bands over the years?
I have never consciously done anything like that.
Really?
Yeah,
Not even lyrically?
No, I mean, not consciously, because...
Oh, okay, yeah.
It might be there, because, like, I've listened to it since I've been into music. I've been into Ozzy and Black Sabbath.
Right, it might be subconscious for sure, yeah.
But I've never consciously done it, because I don't feel like I have the ability to do it any justice. The way they approach things.
Well, that's humble.
That's not in my wheelhouse at all. I am not there by any stretch of the imagination. And it would just come off sounding really, really amateur.
Gotcha. No, that's humble as fuck of you to say. I didn't expect that kind of an answer either. That's really cool. I mean, I guess I would say the same fucking thing. So, I mean, that is the end of, like, the interview style that I put together, but I think this was a good conversation. So, like, do you have any, like, closing thoughts about Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or was there anything that we didn't touch on that you really wanted to?
The only thing I told you about, because I know how far it would go, would be talking about the album cover.
Sure.
Because, again, just to revisit that for a minute, I think it's just such a fucking awesome album cover. Just, like, regardless of it being a Black Sabbath album cover, like, looking at it and thinking about it, it's just so good. And I'd probably just recap most of what we said, that it's just like a strong, flowing record. And it's like, there's really nothing wrong with it. But, you know, Sabbath being a popular band, you're going to have people who are going to be naysayers about everything.
Yeah.
And you're going to have people who are going to be like, well, you know, it kind of sucks for this reason or that reason. Like, you know, maybe people don't like the song Fluff, or they don't like the orchestrations, but I think it all comes together really well. And if for some reason anybody wrote this album off, which I can't, you know, they might just be like, well, I like the song Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Right.
You know, I like Sabracadabra, which I could still be, you know, regardless of the things, like, Um, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, The National Acrobat, and Sabracadabra, I could see being 3 songs, no matter what any Sabbath fan would attach to. The other ones I could see where they might be like, well, this is a little off base for them, but I think it all works. And them adding those different elements to everything is what makes every album interesting, because every one you have some kind of slightly different take on something. And
cool.
That's what kept every album solid and interesting for so long.
Yeah, wow. No, great points. Very cool. No, you're right. I mean, that's it's a simple way to put it, but that is the perfect way to put it, that there's nothing wrong with it. Like, a lot of times that's what I'll look for, is the 1 or 2 things I don't like about it, but there's really nothing wrong with this album.
Yeah, it's like it's just so solid all the way through. And it's like sometimes, I don't know, like I said, like even I said, like, it's like as much as I like, and there's so many Sabbath songs out there, there's songs you're going to forget about.
Sure.
But, when you kind of dive back into an album for whatever reason, you can find something new that you're like, oh yeah, this, you're listening to it, you're like, yeah, I remember this song, but it's never one that's like at the front of your mind. Like I was saying earlier about Who Are You? Like, it's just such a great song, but I never think about it.
Right. Well, everybody needs a refresher. It doesn't matter how much you like a band. Like, I'm sure a lot of things came to mind right after you busted out the album today.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, well, this was great, man. This was educational for me. I'm going to go listen to Trouble.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to do this. I fucking love talking about Black Sabbath. Like, one of my favorite bands to talk about. So, you're in a pinch, and I know you.
Well, I want you to, especially after this conversation, I really want you to come back for Never Say Die.
Oh, I fucking love Never Say Die. I didn't want to push my luck on that after asking about the Tony Martin albums, but yeah.
Well, no, because I have Joe Hufford for Sabotage, and then I have Riley Autumn for Technical Ecstasy, and I haven't lined up anyone specific for Never Say Die. I would love that to be you.
I'm really interested to hear what anybody has to say about Technical Ecstasy. Like I said, even though I like all the Sabbath albums, and when I sit down and listen to it, like, I still enjoy it. There's nothing really wrong with it.
Right.
But it's just never one that I'm like, I want to listen to this album.
Well, I know 2 people who are relatively close to me, and Technical Ecstasy is their favorite Sabbath album for a number of reasons. And it's Robert Bork from Music Matters, and then Riley from the webzine. And I've talked about this album with both of them for at great length. And you know what? It's another one of those records where, like, oh my god, like, I can't stand this album cover, and there's something bland about this album. But then you talk to somebody who's obsessed with that album, and you see it. Just listening to somebody else talk about it who loves it alters your perception a little bit, because you get in that other person's head.
Yeah, like I said, like, it's not a bad album by any means.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not trying to make it sound like, I'm not trying to like shit on the album at all, because I don't think it's a bad album. It's just never like it's the only one that's never a go-to.
Right. No, I get that.
But when I do sit down and listen to it, it's just like, oh, this is a good album.
Right.
Sure. But it's again, it's kind of like waiting for it. So I'm really interested to hear somebody who like loves it.
Yeah. No, that's why I can't wait to do it. Right. For sure.
Yeah, because I think it would be really, like, I would love to hear that point of view. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way. Just like generally, like,
somebody who never reaches for that album, listening to someone who always reaches for that album. Right.
Right.
All right. Well. No, this was
listening to it after.
Right. Yeah. No, this was really, really great, man. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, I will get you back on here for Never Say Die, man.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mike. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, bud. Have a good night, man.
Thanks. You too. Bye.